Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In today's episode, I want to talk briefly about the concept of safety, which for me is a really, really important one, and it's one that's often overlooked. How safe are we actually feeling? And if you start to view life and the world and the events that happen in the world through a filter of safety, it's an interesting lens to look at things from, and it can be a really useful, informative lens of how to see the world. And in order to see through that lens, it involves actually connecting much more to our bodies and what's going on with us, because we actually have a safety filter already built in. And that safety filter is called the autonomic nervous system. Now, the autonomic nervous system is the thing that looks after a whole host of things in our body without asking us. So our digestion, our heartbeat, things like that, really. And they just kind of happen, don't they? It's not like the body keeps checking in with us. You know, shall we beat the heart now? Yes, okay. And then it beats. No, that would be exhausting. So there's certain things that it just does automatically, hence the name autonomic. It just kind of happens automatically. One of the things that it does is it checks our sense of safety. And our nervous system will do one of two things. It will either speed up or slow down. And that's basically what our nervous system does. It has these kind of two modes. It'll either speed us up or it'll slow us down. Now, that slow us down part actually breaks off into two different branches. We have the slowed down when we're feeling safe, which is when we're social and connected, and we can just relax safely in the company of somebody. And we have a slowing down, which is connected to a lack of safety, where we basically freeze or shut down or numb, where we want to actually do the opposite of connection. We want to get away from people. And so because we've got this thing inbuilt within us, which basically acts as an antennae almost of whether we're safe or not, whether we have feelings of safety or not, by just tuning into our own body, we can actually start to see the world through how our body sees the world, which is around safety. And the reason why this is useful is because things which seem not to make sense suddenly make sense once we realize that what's going on for us is that we're not feeling safe. Now, if you think of your own safety system, this autonomic nervous system, as having these three elements to it, kind of connected and social, and everything feels okay. And then the second branch is there's a problem. There's some kind of threat. There's some kind of sense of things not being completely safe. And often what we'll do then is we'll agitate, we'll have more energy, we'll be getting into a fight or flight state. And then the third stage is if we can't actually solve that problem, if that problem is just not something that can be fixed, then we go into that numb state. And you'll see this in animals as well. An animal that gets chased, for example, by a predator will run away. And ultimately, the oldest defense that we've got is that we kind of numb and play dead, because if we're going to get caught, that's actually not a bad defense. First of all, it helps you to disassociate from what's happening. But secondly, if you play dead, then the thing that wants to kill you isn't that interested in killing something that's already dead. If you take it back to this very animalistic thing. And so freezing is a very, very natural response. That numbing shutdown is a very natural response. Now, if you start getting more kind of practiced at viewing what's happening in life through this safety antennae that we've already got in our bodies, we can start to get interested in terms of when it's activated. Like, for instance, when you're in a fight or flight state, how do you actually know that that part of your nervous system has kicked in? What's going on for you? Because it's slightly different for everybody. But it'd be things like, you might feel jittery, you might feel lots of energy in your body, and then a whole host of things which will be unique to yourself. And when you go into shutdown, when you go into a freeze place, where you go into a numb place, how do you know you're in that place? And often that's things like, your emotions seem further away from you, or you feel very guarded, or you kind of hunker down away from people, and these kind of things. And again, a whole host of things which will be unique to you. But by tracking your own nervous system's response to life and events, you can start to get really quite skilled in understanding what's going on in your body and understanding to what extent your nervous system is picking up signs of safety and unsafety. And so you'll actually get to the point where you'll start to notice things. So if you're sat in your living room and someone comes and delivers a letter, that sense of the letterbox making a noise very suddenly and somebody being at the threshold of your property, that will tend, if you notice it, to fire up your nervous system in that moment until you realise, it was just the postie and they were delivering a letter. In that moment, you will feel your nervous system spike. If you're walking down the street and a little gang comes round the corner, you might be completely harmless. You will just notice your nervous system beginning to fire up. It mightn't go directly into fight or flight, but it certainly has one foot in there. You can feel, in terms of your own body, your nervous system just beginning to fire up and prepare itself in case it needs to flee or in case it needs to fight. And so it's useful to kind of get into that place where we can start to notice how we're feeling. Because once we start to notice what our bodies are doing, we can then actually, from that initial map, from that initial tracking of our nervous system, we can then actually allow ourselves a way to befriend our nervous system. Befriend it in such a way that we can say, I see, I'm feeling unsafe in this moment for some reason. And then we can use our own logical capacity to look around and go, well, actually, I'm not actually under any threat here. So what can I do to invite myself back to safety? And it allows us to befriend and almost lead a nervous system which, at least initially, pretty much acts of its own accord. And so this is just an idea really at this stage, because it's a very short podcast, just to introduce you to the fact that your nervous system will be doing its own thing in service of your survival, in service of your protection. And it's actually doing its job really well. But when we're in various stages of our nervous system, whether we be socially connected or fight or flight or shut down, the way we actually conceptualize the world, the way we think, the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we tell about us, the story that we tell about people and life, it changes depending upon what state that we're in. And so if we can actually understand that when we're feeling really negative about something, if we can check where our own nervous systems are, we can start to realize, actually, I'm feeling negative about this because I notice, I'm in a state of shutdown perhaps at this moment. And so the more that we understand that the story that we come up with is actually a reflection of where our nervous system has gone to in order to try and protect us as best as it can, then it allows us to understand that that story may well just be a temporary thing. And that if we can actually work with our nervous systems to just befriend it and cue some signs of safety so it can be brought back again to a safer place, then our story will probably change as well. It's important, I think, in therapy, because therapists will often focus on the logical stuff, will focus on the story and seek to change the story. And yet, if we don't feel safe, we'll be in a part of our nervous system which is probably going to echo out something that reflects the fact that we're not feeling safe. And so getting to a place of safety will often change our story just automatically by virtue of the fact we're in a more socially connected place. Now, if you notice that you're finding connection difficult, then it's very likely then that you're in a state of self-protection. These are like the two states. And if you're feeling as though it's easy to be connected, then you're probably in that socially engaged part of your nervous system where we can kind of slow down but in a place of safety. Whereas if you're feeling as though you're self-protecting and the connection is quite difficult in that moment, you're likely to be in one of those other states, either fight or flight, or if it's gone beyond that and the problem hasn't been solved, or if for some reason your history means that solving the problem doesn't seem like a likely thing to happen, then you might find yourself in shutdown. And so it's a useful way of stepping away from your story and thinking, hang on, this story is likely a reflection of what's going on in my body, in my safety system. The autonomic nervous system itself is probably powering up in a particular place, and depending on where that place is, then the story that I have is going to echo where I am. And so we can kind of almost step away from the story and just try and nurture ourselves back into safety. Now, obviously, there's a lot more I could say about this, but it would take a lot longer than a podcast. But just for the time being, check into those three states. Am I socially engaged and connected, feeling safe? Or am I feeling more agitated and filled with energy, where I'm in a fight or flight? I'm in problem-solving mode, maybe? Or am I shut down, where I feel defeated, where I feel disassociated, where I feel numbed? And they're the three places that your nervous system is going to go to. Sometimes a mix as well. You can have one foot in either camp, but these are the three kind of categories where your nervous system can go to. And once you understand where your own nervous system is by checking in with your body in that way and get more practiced, it allows you to step away from the story, understand that the story is an echo of that, and start to ask a different question, which is, first of all, how can I nurture myself back to a place of safety? What are the things, places, people, activities, smells, sounds, whatever, that make me feel safe? And so if you like this idea and you find it helpful, then please do share it so other people can find it helpful as well. If you'd like to work with your autonomic nervous system with me one-to-one, then feel free to get in touch with me. I'm Alun Parry. You can contact me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And if you prefer to watch these podcasts on YouTube, then if you type in asliceoftherapy.com, it takes you directly to the YouTube channel where all of these podcasts are. And of course, you can subscribe to the podcast completely free wherever you normally find your podcasts. So, other than all of that, thanks very much for listening, and I'll be back once again tomorrow with another one.